So I need to talk about volume in training. A lot of times I see people that they get injured, and or they're just doing too much in training. Right? They're going to throw, and they're way too tired to just get anything done. Like I've been through this before, especially with um, when other people have written my programs. So I guess discuss how you can set up the ideal program. I guess in my mind, um, ideally we want to accomplish a few things. We want to get stronger in the weight room. Obviously, we want to get more explosive, right? Because obviously, the stronger and more explosive we are, the further we can throw. At the end of the day, I mean, because we're just increasing raw potential, right? It's not. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that it's automatically going to apply to the throw, but that's the goal, right? So if we essentially max out our potential in the throw with technique, and we're not throwing far enough, then we just need to raise our potential, right? So the problem with this is that most people they look at this and they say, okay, well, here's what we're going to do in the weight room. And it's so high in volume, right? That you get out to throw and you're just fucked. you're you're just way too tired to do anything. So what I propose is that we just work based on some basic principles, okay? So when we look at the lifts that should apply to the throw, to me the most important ones would be uh, squats or anything that really improves jump fitness, okay? And then anything that's going to improve upper body strength and explosiveness. So bench press, shoulder press, whatever, right? So those basic things. Now, so we have exercise choice, right? And we have to look at it and say, well, what's going to allow us to keep improving, right? Without really killing us in the weight room. So the way we do this is, luckily, we don't have to be good at any specific lifts, right? So we can put variations of lifts in and not really worry about whether our bench is as much as it could possibly be, because really at the end of the day all that matters is potential in the muscle for explosive energy. So we can use that to our advantage, right? Because we can cut volume and we can change workouts, right? So instead of doing bench, let's say we're setting up a month cycle, right? Now, instead of having to change each month, I propose that you would do, say, instead of macro cycles, well, okay, maybe a mesocycle for a month. You just do a cycle for a week, right? So every week you can you can do different exercises, right? So for instance, if you have the bench, you can work bench, you can work incline bench, you can work uh, flat dumbbell, and you can work incline dumbbell. So right there, you have a good 4 week rotation where you're doing something different every week, and you're never adapting to the exercises, because it's common knowledge that in order to keep improving, you have to adapt, right? You have to continually introduce new adaptations. So that's the basic idea behind Bondarchuk, is why as soon as you adapt to the lifts, you essentially throw those lifts out and you rotate. You rotate the next lifts, but his idea would be that you get more and more specific as the season comes. But the problem with that is that you're sacrificing potential along the way, because you end up not doing the you know the big three, so squat, bench, deadlift, because you're switching these out for more specific exercises, right, that relate to the throw. Now, we got to keep in mind that we're always doing specific exercises because the most specific exercises we can do are throwing, heavy and light implements. So, excuse me, I'm all over the place. But so what we can do instead, right, is like I said, we can change up the lifts every week, and that way you'll never adapt, right, and you'll be able to change up the stimulus. So you'll be able to go heavier more often, right, instead of having to take like every fourth week, right. This is traditional in program. Every fourth week you take a week, to do a deload. Instead of doing a deload, just never get to the point where you adapt because we really don't need it anyway. We don't need to be good at any specific lifts, right? Other than being good enough at a lift to increase our athletic potential. So we can use that. We can utilize different exercises, right? And now when we utilize those different exercises for each week, we can change set rep scheme, right? But yet we can, because they're different exercises, right? Just by virtue of that, we can change the we can I should say we can still, quote unquote max out, right? But I'm just gathering my thought. We could still max out, but the neurological impact on it, so the impact on the nervous system is going to be different each week, right? So we end up, by virtue of different resistance is, we end up essentially working in deload weeks into the program, right? So we never really, besides the first couple weeks or so, when you're getting used to a new program, maybe the start of a season, you're not gonna be extra sore, nothing like that. So, I mean, if you are sore from the weight room, it's going to be minimized because you're continually adapting, right? When you start adapting to a specific program, your body just gets tired, and you can no longer really do anything until you introduce something new, and then your body is sort of vibrant again, right? So why not just never put that concept into play, right? So we can change the exercises week to week, and we can change the intensities week to week, right? But now, so we could still get the same amount of work done. Let's say we did bench every week, right? You could still change the intensity, but yet work to failure each week, right? So obviously, if I work a set of 3 to failure one week, but next week I do a set of 10 to failure, it's obviously going to be a different impact on the nervous system. So on our overall body health, it's going to be different. So essentially, we have the idea that you can change up workouts, you can change up exercises, and you change up the intensities, right? So you change up the set and rep scheme every week, and then you can change up the exercises. Now, another thing is overall volume, okay? So this is the most important concept that I like to implement into my training programs for myself and for others, is we need to look at, especially for drug-free throwers, for athletes that are on drugs, it doesn't really matter. You can just keep going. You can throw a shit ton more, and you can lift a shit ton more, and you're really not going to be as fatigued. So this would apply mainly to natural athletes, but I would imagine that a drugged athlete would still get the same benefits. But so that's just an aside. But for drug-free athletes, we have to acknowledge that each athlete can only do a certain amount of work, right? So what we want to do is we need to look at it and say, how can we maximize our time in the weight room? Or I should say, how can we maximize the impact of the weight room while minimizing the time spent in the weight room, right? So maximal efficiency. Okay, so that's how we need to look at lifting like that in through that lens, right? So when we're picking our exercises and we're picking our intensities and our volumes, we're looking at that because in reality, we want to throw as much as we can while being as explosive as we can be, right? So the way we do that is we limit volume in the weight room. Okay. So for instance, not to be vague, um, I will only do, let's say, bench, right? So I'll do a different bench variation each week, and I'll only do one set, one working set, right? So all other sets would be warm up sets up to this. I mean for myself, so this is just me. It might sound crazy, but I only do one rep of warm up of each weight moving up, right? Because I wanna have everything left so that when it comes time for me to do my one working set, I can attack it with everything I have. So so I would normally do one working set, right? In each week. So that one working set would go to failure every week. So every week I go to failure. And um, like I said earlier, the thing that I implement is that so every week the exercises change, and then every week the set rep scheme changes, right? So I might do one set of three one week, and then the next week I might come back and do a set of eight, right? Just because that set of eight, I'm still getting work done and I'm still getting stronger, therefore increasing my potential for maximal velocity out of my body. But I'm I'm lessening the impact on my body, right? So I'm getting more work done essentially for free at that point. Um, so that's what I would do. I usually do one working set to failure, and then I'll drop the weight, and just for some extra reps. It's really not necessary, but I like to do it just for the stimulus. Some so a drop set to failure. So essentially, I would fail two times, but the drop set is usually very lightweight. So it's just a sort of fatigue rather than an actual muscular failure. Um, and then from there I would move on, and I would place the higher volume on say the more specific exercises, right? So bench press would be less specific than say flat flies, right? So if I do flies, now I'll alternate between flat flies and incline flies each week, right? Or sometimes I'll do 2 weeks of flat flies, 2 weeks of incline flies. I'll change it up. I just kind of it's not random, but when I go in the weight room, I mix it up, right? Um, so that's what I'll do. I'll do. So my accessory movements are obviously going to be more specific, right? So let's say um, with the lower body, I would do probably squat, and then maybe some one leg work. The one leg work would be more specific than the squat. Although the squat in general is if you ask me, it's pretty specific. It is a general movement, but if you look at the squat as far as just being able to handle an increased load on the legs out of the back of the circle and at the front, I mean you're talking about the goal at the front is to essentially um, put as much force into the ground as possible so you can lift up, and that action of going up, right, forces a tighter rotation. So essentially, the more force quicker you can deliver into the ground at the front, potentially the further you can throw at the front, given that you're doing everything technically correct. So your technical proficiency is there, and we can maximize uh, the impact at the front. So that would be a basic breakdown of everything I wanted to talk about training wise because I see far too many people that just overdo it in the weight room, and it's really not necessary. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, maybe it makes things easier. Like you can eat more. I guess I don't know, but I don't really know the justification for it other than I kind of see sometimes people, they kind of just like throw the whole kitchen sink in there, if you know that expression. So that would be my general recommendation. So to recap, keep volume low, change exercises, change intensities each week. Okay, but I mean, essentially, you always want to be working maximal intensity. There's no reason as a thrower to get in there and do hypertrophy work, right? I mean, you'd you'd rather not do that, right? Because I mean, the impact it's going to have on you is obviously far less. Um, but I don't see any reason to do that outside of maybe some recovery work, or I don't know, maybe just a little bit of extra volume in the weight room. I just don't see the reason that throwers need to do that kind of stuff. Um, but let me see if I missed anything. Yeah, that would be it. Yeah, okay. So generally, the throwing would be, I mean, typical. As far as it goes now, it's generally accepted, and people know that you should be throwing heavy, light implements just to change and increase the stimulation in the throw, and you can adapt to the throw better. You sort of learn technique better, um, especially with the heavy implements. I find that the heavy implements allow you to feel positions more, and they make you really sort of know how to throw a discus. The light discus, you can sort of force positions to maybe get some extra distance. I mean, obviously, you should never be looking just at distance, because you can essentially optimize distance by improving in the weight room, improving general athletic ability and explosiveness, and then improving technique. So with those two things, you're going to throw further. So I wouldn't worry about like how far you're throwing every day if in general you're getting stronger, more explosive in the weight room, especially in your jump exercises. So I know squat wouldn't be considered a jump exercise, but the higher you squat, the higher potential you have to jump higher, right? And so we know, given Bondarchuk's study of the evidence, that jumps are pretty important to the throw. I guess not at super high levels. They don't determine a far throw, but they definitely play a role at those high levels. So that's all I have for right now.